السلام عليكم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Muhammad Jafri, we can start whenever you're okay.
Assalamualaikum, Molana.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Sorry, give me 1 second, just trying to get, oh, there we go. Okay. I'm good. All right, we're all set.
Okay, so inshallah, assalamu alaikum. Welcome again. And we're going to continue our session that we started last week. For those who weren't here last week, it's on YouTube. You can just look at the Zainabia Center channel and you'll find last week's session. And inshallah, I put into the chat as well at the end of the session, as we've done previously. If you want to ask a question directly to Molana, please feel free. Otherwise, you can, sometimes the chat will work. You can text him directly, or you can text me. I put my cell phone number on the chat thread. And if you prefer, I can ask a question on your behalf. So with that, Molana, I will give it to you.
Thank you very much, Mawla Akbar. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين وهو خير الناصر ومعين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم سلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Before I begin, can I have the host please give me the co-hosting duties, if you don't mind, and to share my screen? If you can give me the power to share the screen with everybody else, that would be great.
Molana, you can share the screen.
I can?
Yeah, you can try. If not, I will give you the...
Oh, you are right. I'm sorry. I should not question you. I apologize. So I hope everyone is doing well, inshallah, and you guys are safe and sound wherever you are. As Muhammad Akbar had announced, this is our second session of 4. And it's always a pleasure for me to address the Zainabia community in Detroit, in Michigan. We've been talking a little bit about the idea of selflessness and empathy. The title of the series, as you saw on the screen, is called The Illuminated Heart. And last week, we kind of set the grounds by talking a little bit about the idea that, in this pandemic, during these very difficult days, and now, we're approaching, like I said last week, we're approaching a year now on pretty much lockdown. Maybe even some can say we're past a year. And so a lot of us are feeling a little bit of the COVID fatigue. I was speaking to a senior alim today in the daytime about something specific, and he had said, just kind of in small talk, he had said, it's getting to me now. It's really kind of, having a toll on my mental health and, on just my sleep, on everything else, And so it's important that we now kind of discover that selflessness that we have inside of us. And, like I said before and last week, that those people that we know that are sitting in darkness, that we do what we can to be a companion in the darkness for them. Now, inshallah, next week, I know I'm jumping ahead, but next week I'll speak a little bit about the approach. Okay, and that I'll get to next week. But last week, we set the grounds by talking a little bit about the types of hearts. If you remember, the base of our discussion from Surah An'am, verse 122, Allah says, I've given you, as a believer, I've given you hayat, and I've given you nur, right? I've given you life, and I've given you light. فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا يَمْشِي بِهِ فِي النَّاسِ. So you take that light and you walk amongst the people with it. Okay, so this light wasn't just meant for your darkness or for you to hoard it or hold on to it. It was always meant for us to illuminate the path of those around us. And how can that be done? Like I said before, scrolling through your phone, making sure that you check in every so often. I have a certain day of the week where I send out 5 to 6 messages, just randomly checking in how's it going. One thing that I think that we really need to focus on is our elders in our families, in our community. A quick phone call, uncle, how are you? Auntie, how are you? Everything okay? And sincerely ask them, can I bring anything for you? Can I drop off some groceries? Are you okay in terms of just your essentials? It goes a long way. It goes a long way. And so, these are the days where we have to really, really kind of, break the chains, like I said last week, of selfishness and individualism, and really be there for each other. Okay. Now, last week we talked about the 4 types of hearts, right? In al-qaluba arba'a, Imam Sadiq says. There's 4 types of hearts. One heart is a heart that has nifaq and iman inside of it. The other one was mankus, matbu, azhar. All that I explained to all of you last week. And that brings me to this week's discussion. Okay, let's go ahead and share my screen and we will get started. A lot to say. That's why I'm talking a mile a minute. I get it. But inshallah, you guys are, by now, I'm pretty sure you guys are used to me by now. What am I doing here? I'm doing this. All right. And yes, my kids are still awake. So if you can hear them, dropping and banging and screaming, then don't mind me. Inshallah, it's not where I wanted to go. This was all last week. Sorry, guys. 1 second. Okay. All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So what I wanted to do today was I want to look at selfless in the eyes of both Allah and the Ahlul Bayt. Okay. A very important discussion, a very important topic. I wanted to establish and kind of fortify the idea that are there examples? To what extent have the Ahlul Bayt described for us how to be selfless? Now, one thing I'm going to mention time and time again, and this will be my last discussion in about 2 weeks from now, is the fact that, I'm not asking anybody, and don't get me wrong, to give and give and give and give to the point where you are depleted for yourself and for your family. Okay? I'm asking you to look after your own mental health. Sometimes, in order for us to rescue someone else out of their anxiety, we end up being riddled in our own, right? We have to set boundaries and set limits and know our capacity and know how much we can give. Whenever the Ahlul Bayt give, they never gave all of themselves. They gave whatever they could in terms of the fact that balancing, their family and, of course, the ones who are in need. That you have to always keep in mind. Okay, Islam does not say to oppress yourself to bring others to justice. Islam does not say to go hungry for yourself, but in order to feed others. No, you have a family, you have yourself to feed. Like I said yesterday, you have $2 in your pocket, give one to the one who's in need, and you keep one for yourself. Okay, but a couple examples, guys, very quickly. Let's go through this. I found this to be pretty incredible. Hopefully you will as well. Number 1, the Prophet. Look at now this hadith. Now, before I get into the hadith itself, you have to understand when the Ahlul Bayt, when the Imams and the Prophet now and say the Fatima Zahra Salamun alayha, when they speak and give their hadith, this is not exaggeration, guys, right? It's not like, loves bazi, as you say in Farsi. It's not chaplusi, as you say sometimes in Urdu. It's not this idea, I sometimes I talk in exaggerating tones. It's never been like that. It'll never be done again. This was the biggest moment. All those things are no. Everything is very much calculated. When they speak with hisab. They speak with accountability. Why do I say that? Because when you read a hadith like this, Man qada li akhihi al-mu'min, that one who fulfills the desire of his brother, of the mu'min, li akhihi al-mu'min haja, the one now who fulfills the desire of their believer. A believer comes to you, a believer now comes to you and says, I am in need of this. Or a believer is showing you signs that I'm in need of this. You do everything you can now to fulfill that need. If you do that, the Prophet says, فَكَأَنَّمَا عَبْدَ اللَّهَ دَحْرًا. Amazing. Amazing. It's as if you have worshipped Allah for your entire life. Now, does that mean that all of a sudden I help somebody out now? No salat? No, of course not. Of course not. But look at now the weight of helping somebody else. Okay? On one side of the scale is all of your entire life's worth of worship. On the other side is helping somebody reach their destination and their goal. Okay? I'm not asking you to come in and save the world. I'm not asking you now to come in and somehow, solve their problems. Sometimes the problems are deep-rooted, and sometimes the problems are way beyond you or me. But I am asking you sometimes simply sit in that room with them. Share one text exchange with them. Goes a long way. That's one hadith. The second one is the story of Imam Hassan Mujtaba alayhi salatu wasalam. The story says that he was sitting in ittikaf, Imam Mujtaba. What is ittikaf? Ittikaf, as you know, is a removal, a recharge station, as you will. That you are asked now to sit in a masjid for 3 nights and 3 days, sometimes longer, sometimes 5 days, depending on what the system's like. And you are to stay there for 3 days and 3 nights inside the mosque. Sleep there, eat there. And of course, there are rules. You are not to engage in worldly talks. You are to engage, let's say, for example, in spiritual means. It's your chance to kind of, isolate and quarantine, if you will, for a couple of days and recharge yourself and then re-emerge yourself back in society where now you are refocused and you are mindful of what you're doing. Okay? Now, one thing about itikaf is that you can't leave. You're in the masjid, unless there is something that's medically wrong, or there's sharaits, there's conditions for sure. But it's not that easy to say after the first day, you know what, I miss my family, I'm tired, I'm gonna go. No, it's a commitment, sacrifice, an act of worship. They say that when Imam Mujtaba was in his ittikaf, there's a man who entered the mosque looking for Imam Mujtaba. And he says, look to the Imam, he says, there is a person I owe money to. I owe somebody 900 dirhams. And if I don't pay him back, he will make sure that I end up in jail. Can you come and help me? The Imam says, I don't have 900 dirhams on me right now. He says, fine, can you at least come and talk to him? Maybe give me a little bit of time to come up with the money and, stop him essentially from putting me in jail. The story says that Imam got up, began to walk out of the masjid. A companion now calls him and says, Yabna Rasulullah, should I remind you you're in ittikaf right now? You can't just leave. The Imam stops, turns around. It's a moment to teach, right? He said, I am fully aware of the fact that I am right now in ittikaf. But when I leave this masjid and I go with this fellow brother, attempt to help him through his difficulty, it's as if I've done ittikaf my whole life to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Ittikaf is a big act of worship, guys. It's not for everybody. The amount of reward is astonishing. But here, with rather ease now, gets up, begins to walk out, to the point where the companions now, with jur'at and audacity, said, well, maybe he forgot that he was in ittikaf. Should I remind him? And then he says, I know exactly what I'm doing. Again, the beautiful act of ittikaf and helping another mu'min out. Number 2, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam and tawaf. 2 companions of Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam were with Imam Sadiq, 3 of them now, during Hajj, doing tawaf of the Kaaba. Okay? After a few rounds of doing tawaf, now one of the companions had finished their 7 rounds and slowly but surely made their way out of the tawaf circle. This other friend of his is now beside Imam Sadiq, and now they are going around there and doing their 7 rounds. As they go around 1 round, the other friend who's done begins to wave his friend over. I need your help. I need you. Can you come here? Can you come here? And actually, number 1 is he's in the middle of the tawaf. Number 2, he's beside Imam Sadiq. Ignores his friend. Now, before I go on, let me establish one thing for you. I went for Hajj in 2016, and I remember how difficult tawaf was. The first time I did tawaf in my Umrah Tamattu is very difficult. I read about tawaf. This is my first time in Saudi, first time in Mecca, and I was, quite blown away at the difficulty of tawaf, even me being a big guy. but still. And I remember one of the individuals had told me that, Sayyid, I read somewhere, and then I confirmed afterwards, that every round of tawaf, there's 7 rounds in one tawaf, every round eliminates 6,000 sins. Understand that, digest that. Every round of tawaf, every time you go from Hajar al-Aswad all the way back around Hajar al-Aswad, that's 1 round, 7 rounds is one tawaf. Each round either eliminates 6,000 sins or writes 6,000 deeds for you. For who? For the Haji. Again, go back to my first point. This is not like exaggeration, right? Random numbers, right? Millions and thousands. No, this is very, very calculated. 6,000 sins, 6,000 good deeds. 1 round. This man is doing round after round beside the Hujjat of Allah, beside the 6th Imam. A friend of his now is calling him. If that was me, I'd do the exact same thing. I'm sorry. I'd ignore the guy. I go, look, whatever it is, it can wait. I'm right now, number 1, doing tawaf. Number 2, I'm with Imam Sadiq. Can you imagine doing Hajj with Imam Zamana? Beside you is Imam Mahdi, you're doing tawaf. Would anything at that moment pull you away? As he went around the 2nd time and this guy is frantically waving towards him, now Imam Sadiq now notices. Do you see your friend there waving you over? I do. Ya Ibn Rasulullah, right now, I'm in the middle of Hajj right now, tawaf right now. Keep in mind those amount of rewards and the sins that are forgiven. Imam Sadiq says, break your tawaf. Go and help your friend. Come back and rejoin the tawaf. Now, many of you might say, Shara'an, after 4 rounds, you're allowed to do that and resume, blah, blah, blah. Let's assume that there is a bigger picture here. Okay, let's assume, and that's the assumption here, that Imam Sadiq is saying that, look, all of those sins, all those good deeds, that enormous reward on one side, helping out your friend, even if you think it's trivial, is on the other. Like, these things are incredible, guys. These things are incredible. If somebody now comes to your doorstep or is on your phone asking you for help, you drop whatever you can and you do your level best to help them. If you can. Again, not at the price of everyone else's anxiety around you. You have to find a working balance where you're able now to give and you're still able to retain. Point number 3 is one I want to expand on tonight. Okay, and by 7:45, inshallah, I'll be done. You guys now will be able to get a good 15 minutes of asking questions. I have to stop hard at 8 p.m. sharp. I have another program at 8:15. Sometimes what stops us from helping others out is that, number 1 is, like I said last week, we talk ourselves out of it, right? I really should call them. I really should reach out to them. Like, I will tomorrow. Tomorrow never happens. I don't know. Is it weird? What do I say? This and that, right? Some people straight out have anxiety. I don't know how can, especially when somebody passes away, I don't have the words. What do I say? I'm sorry for your loss. Like, what if they start crying? How do I handle that? All of these things now talk us out of helping anybody. Or the other reason why sometimes we won't do that, this is very key in tonight's discussion, is the fact that, look, I've done that before, Molana. I've reached out to people, and either, number 1, they've slammed the door in my face, or they've ghosted me on text, or they flat out say, none of your business. Don't worry about it. Or even worse yet, I didn't get the appreciation, or I didn't get the sense that they appreciated the fact that I reached out as much as I could. Now I told myself that anything moving forward is going to be a problem. Okay, and so what do? We swear blind. That's it. It's like those people who have employees. Who run their own business, and they hire a few of our Shia Mu'mineen believers as employees, and they turn out to be horrible. They walk in late. They take long lunches. Their Jummah for some reason, right? The work is shoddy, right? And then after that, I swear blind, I will never hire another one of our people again. Okay. You went above and beyond to help somebody out years ago. It turned out to be a horrible experience. You told yourself, you know what? I'm sorry. I'll pray for them on the musalla. In the heart of my hearts, I'll pray for them, but I'm not going to reach out and go above and beyond to help them because it hasn't been a good experience. And what we were expecting from them, we didn't get. And by the way, that's natural, right? I don't get a thank you. I don't get appreciation. It's not that you're doing it for that, but it's fitri, right? It's innate. It's innate to thank somebody. It's innate to receive some sort of gratitude as well from other people as well. That's fine. I mean, obviously, if you're doing it for the recognition, you're doing it for the accolades, you're doing it for the for the hashtag, that's something else. That's a little bit egotistical. But it's okay to sit there and say, well, did they get what I sent them? Did they like it? I mean, saying nothing is like, okay, did I overstep? Right? And so we really overthink things sometimes. And that's why the ulama have said, and I think there's a hadith, I'm not sure, that the moment that a niyat khair comes into your head, act on it. Because the moment that niyat comes, the package of shaitan comes with it and begins to pick at that intention. Forget it. Are you sure? This and that. Who do you think you are? You're not that tight, not that close. You're going to embarrass yourself. What do you say? Right? This and that, blah, blah, blah. They can see you typing in the text, so forget it. And before you know it, you had a good intention and it's gone. And that's where I want to speak a little bit about morality without God versus morality with God. Okay? There are some people who will argue with me that, look, you don't need God to be good. There are people who are atheists in this world, agnostic in this world, who are good. They do great work. There are, high-level celebrities, athletes, let's say, for example, who pay for people's tuitions, who open up schools, right? That's great. If you ask them about their belief in God, they'll say, no, there's no belief in God. I don't have a belief in God. So then, why do I need God to do good? The difference is this, and please, I need you guys right now. The difference is this. The difference is that in a world of morality without God, that world is very apparent. Okay? Meaning there has to be a physical existence of that morality on the outside, a physical well that's dug up, a physical building, a school that's opened up, for example, right? Your name on the hospital wing donated by, for example, right? I don't know, a calling out during a fundraiser, right? All those things are, because morality has to be shown. Right? Nobody in a godless world would ever understand what's inside your brain. Well, I wanted to donate, but I had the intention. Intentions in that world don't really go very far, right? Until there's a tangible reality to your intention on the external world, there's no point. That morality doesn't go anywhere. It enters your mind, didn't act on it, and it kind of evaporates like a raindrop on a hot sunny day. So yes, I'm not doubting the intention, but I'm saying that until that morality finds its way in the external world, we can see it and touch it and read it, then it doesn't go anywhere. But morality in a God-centric world is a morality that does not require an external existence, doesn't require the world to know it. In a morality without God, being anonymous doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. But in a world that's God-centric, it's actually sometimes recommended to be anonymous. So you don't allow your nafs to feel a little bit of this cheap, they call it sasti shu'arat in Urdu, right? This cheap kind of, quick sort of fame, 15 seconds of fame, as you guys call it, that, really is way beyond what that act deserved. Let me further the talk with an example. There's a lot of things that you guys do that no one sees that you guys do it. I'll give simple examples. You're having a heated discussion with your family. Okay? With your husband or your wife. Okay? Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how I can quiet my kids down upstairs, but inshallah, hopefully this mic is drowning out the noise upstairs. But it's okay. I'll ignore it. I'm sorry, guys. Just bear with me.
Molana, the noise is fine. It's not.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So you're having a heated argument with your spouse. Things get a little bit personal. Okay. Now, sometimes, certain words trigger certain emotions, right? And sometimes the spouse knows it. So what do? We sometimes, we press that button. We push that lever. And we wait to see what the reaction will be. And then that button of yours is pressed. And now the anger begins to come to the top. Come to the top, come to the top. What do? You swallow the anger. You take the high road. You walk away. You calm the tone of your voice down. All of those things, guys, are unseen. They're unseen. Nobody knows, even the spouse in front of you, how utterly angry you are at that moment. Nobody knows the voice in your head saying, swallow the anger, Asad, swallow the anger, Asad, swallow the anger, Asad. You are, you have the opportunity now to blast somebody, to drag their name through mud like they dragged your name through mud. This is a golden opportunity. What do? You take the high road. Okay. You have a chance now to avenge all the ghibat and the backbite that they did about you, and you choose the high road. That's anonymous. No one saw it. Nobody knows the words that were formulated. Nobody knows what you know inside of your brain. What do? You walk away. Don't say a word. Take the high road. Change the subject. Or say something good about them, even though the thought of them makes you very, very angry. Is that external? No. Very much internal. It's all hidden. Nobody sees it but God. And therein lies the difference. Therein lies the difference. Because when you do that, while in a godless moral system, the external is the one that triggers the reward, that triggers the accolades, that triggers, the accomplishment. In a God-centric world, it's what God sees and what others don't see that sometimes triggers the reward. You're swallowing your anger. I can't see you swallowing it, but God sees it. You're parking your emotion aside and you're going the high route. God sees it. You're choosing to forgive instead of avenge. God sees it. The problem is that we have to believe in that system. The problem is that system of God sometimes is not instant. This system is instant. Okay? This system of a godless morality is instant. You have your instant graphic, you have your ribbon cutting, you have people looking at you, you have people hugging you, you have people, congratulating you, you have people, all these things. We have to be okay with moving away from the instant gratifying dimension of society and go towards the delayed gratifying system of God. Okay? That's why, it's vital that we revive the idea of being anonymous in our good deeds. We bury our good deeds like we bury our sins. Okay? We bury the things that we do like we bury, for example, all the mistakes that we make. We go above and beyond to make sure nobody knows about my deficiencies. No one knows about my anxiety. No one knows about my my confidence issues. No one knows. No, I put on a great front and a facade, especially in this world nowadays. A great front, like everything is great. But deep down inside, the heart of my hearts, no one should know it but me. We have to do that with our good deeds as well. Right? So believe in that system, guys. Why do I bring this up now? Because maybe at that moment when you help somebody out, they weren't somebody who gave you the proper accolades. They weren't somebody who really showed a true sense of appreciation. I didn't get like the emoji I wanted. I didn't get 1,000 thank yous I wanted. That's okay. Because along with that person seeing you, God saw you as well. I remember in my first year of Qum. So we had spent a good almost 10, 11 months straight in Qum. And then in the summertime, we always came back home. And only because, the summers were invariably hot in Qum, and then, the school was kind of half closed, half there. Some of the teachers weren't there. It's been a good year since we've been home. So we thought, let's hop on a plane and let's go. Just my wife and I. We didn't have any kids at that moment. And I remember after spending 10, 11 months in that society, and if you've been to Qum for ziyarat, you would know that if you spend 1 or 2 days there, there's a vibe, there's a magnetic pull inside of Qum. It's a village. The water out of the taps is not drinkable. It's salt water. It's very, very hot. There's not much to do in that city in terms of entertainment. The people sometimes can be interesting. But there was this spiritual vibe. Everywhere you turned, you saw spirituality. On the TV, walking around, you're in line to buy some bread. There's ulama everywhere. And so, 2 days of that, 3 days of that, forget that. Imagine 10 to 11 months of that. Going to masjid whenever I can on the weekend, multiple times. Jam Quran at least twice or 3 times a month. Dasa akhlaq by this marja, dasa akhlaq by that marja. I mean, oh my God, this is just. I was like a kid in a candy store. Anyways, so 11 months of that, my biggest fear was going back to this society and losing a little bit of the spiritual momentum that I had. I was, like, what do I do now? I mean, I don't want to engross myself back in this society. So I had a teacher. His name was Agha Dadashi. Okay, 6'7" from Turkey. He taught me kalam, aqaid. Amazing teacher. I remember asking him, Agha, I'm going back now for the summer. I'll be back in a couple of months. I'm a little bit worried about this. What do I do? How do I avoid crashing from a very, very high? He said, every so often, take it out tasbih and read Ya Hadir, Ya Nadir. Ya Hadir, Ya Nadir. I'm not giving anyone a prescription here. I'm trying to make a point. I'm not one to give prescriptions out. But, Hadir means the one who's present. Nadir, the one who sees. Remind yourself that God isn't only in the valleys and the streets of Qum. Right? He said, your kamal, your perfection is not to gain spirituality here. The perfection is to find spirituality everywhere. Okay? And to find God in everything that you do. It's easy. He goes, with all due respect, it's easy. Literally, guys, in the streets of Qum, you have to work very, very hard to commit a sin. There's police everywhere. There's ulama everywhere. There's people of conscience everywhere. Like that city polices itself. So, the crime rate, the theft, this and that, all that is extremely low in Qum because nobody has the jur'at to do it. So that really struck a chord. This is like, we're talking about almost 20 years ago, right? This really struck a chord with me. And I realized then that I have to remind myself in every encounter that I have, Ya Hadir, Ya Nadir. He's present. He sees exactly what you're doing. He saw your text. He saw your call, not in an evil way. I'm not trying to make anybody here scared. I'm saying even the goodness that you do. A lot of times you say, you know what? They have no idea how many times I've wanted to say this, but I didn't say it. Out of, respect for them or respect for their in-laws, or, I could have if I wanted to, at that moment, if I wanted to, this could have, and you didn't do any of that. And no one saw it. And sometimes the frustration is no one sees it. Nobody knows what I did, Molana. And I'm saying that's wrong. God knows what you did. And he's everything. And he's everywhere, and he sees everything. And we have to now believe in that. Yes, of course, the accolades, the appreciation, the love, the compassion from our spouse, from our parents, from our siblings and our kids and our parents. Of course, that's huge. But don't fall into the trap that morality can only be external. That goodness has to have a form and a shape to it. That a good act has to be seen or heard or smelt or I don't know, applauded. Sometimes the most invisible, in fact, Hadith flat out says, the highest reward belongs to the most invisible deed. Why? It's very difficult to do that. It's very, very hard to do that. Okay? And that's why this verse in front of you is very important. Okay? You know, whether you are, you do things makhfiyane, as they say in Farsi, right? وَإِن تُخْفُوا مَا فِي صُدُورِكُمْ, whether you hide what's in your heart, right? أَوْ تُبْدُهُ يَعْلَمْهُ اللَّهُ, or you manifest it, whatever it is, Allah knows it. Allah knows it. Now, this is not to be taken in a negative way. Yes, it's important to know that even those thoughts that we have of sin, of backbiting, evil, satanic thoughts, Allah knows about it. But the beauty of Allah's grace, is what? Is that pure intentions are rewarded and evil intentions are not punished. He waits. But the moment we have a good intention, he writes it down. Okay, he intended to do it, or she intended to do it. My point is that believe in a God-centric morality. Do it for the sake of Allah. Do it not hoping for a reaction in return. Okay? And that's very difficult. Easy for me to say, very hard to do. The very famous story from Surah Al-Insan. Imam Mushtaba is sick. The Prophet says you are to fast. To Imam Ali and his daughter Sayyidah Fatima, fast for 3 days. Inshallah, the barakat of this fast will give your son good health again. As you know, every single night for 3 nights, the moment that the iftar time would happen, there would be 3 different people come at the door. Okay? And, an orphan, a beggar, and a captive. And in that surah, they say, إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءٌ وَلَا شَكُورًا. We give out of the essence of Allah. We don't wish for anything, not a jaza, not a shukr, not a thankfulness, or not thanks, and nor gift either. Okay? So I'm not asking anyone here to not expect some sort of a reaction. I'm saying don't allow the reaction you got when you helped others to formulate the path in the future. That might have been an isolated incident. That might have been one person. That might have been their personality. You always maintain your akhlaq. One thing I've always said that I don't see happening inside of me, forget any of you, is the fact that we have to have our own morals and values and our own akhlaq. Sometimes we allow others to dictate to me how my akhlaq should be. If someone is low, I get lower. Someone goes high, I go higher. Someone spews garbage at me, I spew tons of garbage at them. Somebody is nice, I'm sweet. Somebody is jahil, I become jahil, ignorant. Somebody, mashallah, is knowledgeable, I bust out my useless facts, right? Basically, I'm nothing but a reflection of the person in front of me. And Islam says no. You have your own morals, your own values, your own akhlaq, right? Reflect that onto others, such that even if the person in front of you is spewing fire, you become the water to what? To extinguish that fire. If someone is an ignorant person in front of you, you show your knowledge, your wisdom, your patience, your forbearance, right? The person wasn't properly, in terms of their morality, properly behaving with you when you reached out to them, that's okay. But it won't stop me from what? From helping others in the future. It's just what I do. It's what I do. Don't allow people to have that much real estate inside of you. They come in and they play with your tarbiyat and they play with your values. They make you somebody that you're not. And I'm sorry, but that's what sometimes toxic people in our life do. There are people in our life who are toxic. And I'm sorry, sometimes it is family and sometimes it is close friends. And I'm not here to talk about any of that. But I'm saying that sometimes there is this idea of a toxic vibe around you. And it turns you a little bit toxic as well. Okay, remind yourself, Ya Hadir, Ya Nadir, Ya Hadir, Ya Nadir. Okay, and tell yourself time and time again that, even though they didn't give me what I wanted in terms of a reaction, I know that God saw what I did. What's inside of my hearts, God saw, and that's enough for me. That's enough to me. Let's revive the beauty of being anonymous. Let's not always chase the accolades, right? Remember, the same people you're searching for validation from are the same ones that might even cut you off next week. But Allah is what? Ya Sari ar-Rida. He's easily pleased. And his pleasure is document exactly what pleases him will please him next week, next month, next year, 10 years from now. He won't fluctuate, right? He won't change on us. Anyways. So guys, that's our discussion for tonight. And again, sorry for the noise. And if there's any questions at all, please, let's go ahead and open the floor up. I'll stop my share and we'll go ahead and open up the chat. Thanks for your patience. Bismillah.
All right, thanks, Molana. Again, for everybody, you can either unmute yourself and ask your question directly. If you don't feel comfortable, I put my number in the chat. It's 404-217-5762. You can text me. So Molana, while I'm waiting for to see if anybody has a question, this session kind of reminded me of an example you gave at Zainabia one time of somebody going to the center early and vacuuming and cleaning, and then during the majlis, hoping somebody recognized who was that mystery vacuum cleaner guy. And
yeah, that put that, you know those vacuum marks on the carpet. Yeah.
And so I felt like that really hit me hard because I felt like I was that guy, that, if I did something, I'm really, really hoping for somebody to say, oh, good job. Thanks.
Yeah.
You did awesome.
Yeah.
Just like these sessions, you're hoping somebody will text me and say, oh, thanks so much for getting Molana Asad Jafri to do the session. So it's one thing, so that really helped me recognize that was a problem that I had, but I feel like I still had that problem, even though you gave that lecture. And so how, what would you give as a solution for somebody like me who has that vanity that they want that recognition?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, to feel good about yourself when you do something good it's not blasphemous, right? So, it's okay. And in fact, it's sometimes recommended to kind of acknowledge the fact that, what, I earned this small victory. I got up and I vacuumed the carpet. I put the shoes back in the shelf, for example. I shoveled the snow in front of the Zainabia door or those stairs that go down from the front area, just to make sure nobody falls, right? And when you look at the stairs, they're all very clean and they're all salted and everyone is going up the stairs. Aram said, no worries, this and that, there's no fear of falling. I did that, and that's okay. But to go one step further to say, like to make it a point to make sure everyone knows about it, that becomes now a little bit narcissistic, right? How do we do that? It's not an overnight pill, Mohammed. Like, you know this better than I do. I mean, for physical ailments, you can pop a pill and maybe the next morning you'll feel a little bit better. For spiritual ailments, it's a process. And that process is enslavement to God, right? When you increase your enslavement to God, and again, it's a long-term goal, increasing your worship, bettering your worship, making your worship better. Your salat now is more focused, all these things, then you really truly kind of you feel the fact that there is a master over me. When that happens strong enough, any sort of sense of vanity and ego and I'm this and I'm that, it slowly kind of fades away, right? And I find that a lot of it is the more you serve, the more you realize, I like this feeling I have inside of me that God's given me. And this feeling is better than anyone could sit there and say shabash or, applaud or, go to your dad. So you've raised a great kid, or that feels good. But this feeling God gives me is something that's unparalleled. Yeah.
So a question on the thread is, how do we deal with feeling of guilt when we're unable to help others or reach out for various reasons? Is our guilt justified, or should we brush off those feelings?
So, I mean, if the guilt is justified, I mean, in terms of the fact that I just couldn't, or I didn't, look, sometimes, and I'll get to this, inshallah, in 2 weeks, is that, if sometimes we want to help, but I know that, for example, it's not gonna end up being helpful at all. So I'll pray for them, and that's okay. That's totally okay. That's you recognizing, that's you having enough emotional intelligence to know that, look, this is a lot for me right now. What they're dealing with. I've been down that road. It triggers me. You know, I don't want to become about me. I know it's going to become about me. They're going to end up now sitting there consoling me. So I'm just going to back off. And that's okay. But yeah, if you have the opportunity out of laziness or out of, just kind of heedlessness and no importance, then maybe, yeah, we can tip there and say, you know what, like maybe next time, I'll find it in me to get up and help them. And by the way, nowadays, there's no shortage of people who don't need help. We live in a very shame culture like fashion where we don't speak out in what we need because we're worried about what others might think about us. I don't want Zainabia to find out that I don't have my family affairs in order, or that, my marriage is broken, or that my kid's out of control. So I'm just going to pretend like we're all good until, the edge of a cliff, and then I'll reach out for help. That's a whole issue altogether that I have to address one day, someday. But, overall is that there's a lot of issues in our communities and there's a lot of instance for help. So if you don't have that, if you drop the ball in this area, there's another one coming up. And sometimes God will test you with that other opportunity. Did you learn from that? Guilt is a beautiful emotion if it really kind of triggers you towards change, inshallah.
Next question is kind of a balanced question. It says, when we have to choose between helping relatives and helping like the center or masjid, what would be best?
Yeah, that's a different one. That's a difficult one to answer. I think that if it comes down to a choice, I like to think that it's never an either or. It's a matter of kind of adjusting the weight on the seesaw, right? So maybe putting the heavier guy on that side, and you're the lighter guy, you're on this side. So the heavy guy is here, and you, the light guy, is a little bit more up in the air. So I see this too many times, especially some of our elders who just have given every ounce of blood and sweat inside the center, and a thousand salams to them. But their family complains, Molana, he's never home. She's always at the center. There's no program time. There's no reason to be there. They'll find a reason to be there. The shelf is uneven. The light bulb is out, for example. That doorknob isn't opening. I don't know. The mic isn't well. He'll be the only guy there all 3-4 hours a day. Meanwhile, inside the house, this is being done. That's being done. So, if it's an either or, I don't know. But I think that we can't say, look, I'm serving the community. You guys need to figure things out here without me. No, because you serve God with your family, you serve God with the community as well. So yeah, you need to strike a balance, and obviously the fact that this question was asked, it's an actual issue, right? So Sister Alia, just to answer your question, the program I have afterwards is a private majlis or a private program. I mean, if you want to come, you can come, but it's not a class. Sorry.
Okay.
Thanks
next
for answering.
No problem. No problem.
We don't want to miss out on anything.
No, you won't miss it. Don't worry. Trust me. Thank you.
So next question is, I'm a new balagha. Can you tell me some invisible good deeds I can do?
Sorry, one more time. Sorry, this is
somebody
this is
who's
on your
newly
phone?
baligh. What are some quote unquote invisible good deeds that they can do?
Wow, that's a great question. If you're newly baligh, honestly, I think that the best thing you can do that's invisible is around the house. Laundry, vacuum, clean. When I say invisible, I mean without having been asked and begged and bribed. Because right now, a lot of you guys are home. I think that invisible acts is, helping the parents around the house, assuming that you're either 9 or 10 or you're 14 or 15. I think they would love it if you could, if you could help around the house. And if they ever ask you, like, why'd you do it? Then you should give them my name and really make me look good, saying that Molana Asad Jafri told me to do it. That would be great. If not, honestly, and this is obviously, it's a little bit, small things like sending flowers to somebody just because, those kind of small things here and there. But I think that at that young of an age, I think it'd be very helpful if you guys could help around the house, do things for your parents, cut a bowl of fruit, send up a cup of tea, something, right? Without them asking. That's what I mean, yeah.
So next one's a little bit similar, but not, it's got a slight variation to kind of what I brought up earlier. It says, how do we avoid being someone who kind of toots their own horn, someone who likes to mention their charitable acts or good deeds.
Yeah, I think I addressed that with your issue, Mohammed Akbar. But you know, like I said, it's a process, right? It's very tough for me to answer that question without us going through, you know, I would obviously there is a force inside of us that wants us to toot our horn, that wants the mention, that wants everything like that. So we have to weaken that force inside of us. That's ultimately the goal, right? We have to weaken that. We have to weaken the ego inside of us. So what are ways to weaken the ego inside of us? Number one is worship. Number two, and this may sound odd to you, and if you remember, I talked about this in my family discussion. I think it was in December. I talked about the idea of helping around the house, doing things that quote unquote aren't the best chores to do, right? Cleaning the bathroom, scrubbing the toilets, picking up the nasty garbage, going through the fridge and picking out the food that's gone bad, that's leaking, for example, right? Those kind of things, okay? Those things have a real quick way of destroying our ego. But it is a process of enslavement towards God. The closer you are to God, the more he'll make you feel like you are his slave. Okay?
Okay, so next one, it says, can you please help clarify, or perhaps it's a little bit off topic, but can you please help clarify or perhaps have a session on making the definitions and example of what constitutes gossip and backbiting?
Yeah.
There are many scenarios where one is on a thin line regarding this.
So first of all, you know, and I don't want to diminish the question, but why the need to define? They're both horrible things to do. You know, it's like asking, you know, which one is worse for your health, cookies or chips? And the answer is both. Like, you know, avoid both of them. To simplify it, gossip sometimes is things that are not true. Backbiting are things that are true. Slander, for example, are things that you make up about somebody or that you assume or about them, and that you spread. And backbiting can be true, but yes, there are conditions, right? A public act, everyone knows about it. Talking about that, you know, is not new information. But when you add your own sort of, you know, spices to it, you add a little bit of character assassination to it, you know, you go from talking about the act to the person who did the act, then that becomes problematic. Situations where, quote unquote, it's allowed, even recommended. Somebody calls you and says, look, there's a boy in Toronto who sent a proposal for marriage for my niece. Do you know him? Yes, I know him very well. Okay, can you tell me all about him? I'm obliged to tell the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I have in the past. People call me all the time. Do you know his family? Yes, I do. And I tell them the challenges. Do I sit there and say, oh, you know, do I name call? No, of course not. But even then we have to be very, very careful, right? So, you know, gossiping and backbiting, you know, you can gossip about things that are true. You can sit there and really enjoy your time at the expense of somebody else. And that's ultimately what the disgusting act is. Enjoying yourself at the expense of someone else's embarrassment, someone else's character assassination, to the point where if they were in that room, you wouldn't say a word. If you know that you wouldn't say a word if the person is in that room, then don't say it even though they're not in the room. Okay?
So next question is, what do you do to be help to people who are dealing with really heavy things, like loss of a loved one, abusive relationship, miscarriage, etc., without becoming weighed by it yourself?
So you know, I will address that next Wednesday. I'll talk about what the approach is. Now we decide, okay, you know what? I'm going to reach out to this person. I'm going to go and help them. I'm going to enter their darkness. What should be my approach? And inshallah, that's all next week. But just to kind of give you a little bit of a preview, sometimes I realize this through my own experience. People are not always looking for results. They're not looking for you to, you know, fly in with your cape and save the day. And sometimes all they want is for you to sit beside them. Sometimes all they want is for you to hear them. And you don't have to have the answers. You're not a marriage counselor. You're not a mental health expert. You're not a psychologist. You're not a psychiatrist. You're not a doctor, let's say, for example. Talk about this miscarriage and that miscarriage. But what you are is you are a friend. You're sympathetic. You're empathetic. You're sincere. And you're listening. Sometimes that's better than any advice there is. There are some people who walk in and they have this aura like, you know what, I know exactly what the problem is with you. This is the problem with you. And sometimes you just don't want to hear that. You don't want unsolicited advice. I never asked you for advice. I asked you to come and just hear me. That's fine, right? How do you ensure that it doesn't weigh on you? That's very personal. I don't know. I mean, that's something that you have to park it, and we have to learn to, grab the emotion and put it in a box. And I've learned that the hard way, just in my past 10, 15 years to do that. There's reasons why, I've lost a lot of my hair and my beard is all white. And, a lot of it is trying to figure out and navigate through someone else's, and I lose sleep over sometimes the stories I've heard and the things people go through. And it's very difficult to figure out a balance. And sometimes I don't, right? Sometimes I get sick, and sometimes I have, heart attacks, and sometimes I have issues, and it's just not easy. And so, it is however you want to deal with it, but it is a whole different discussion on emotional intelligence. And that is someday we'll have a session on that as well, inshallah. Yeah, I mean, sorry, that wasn't much of an answer, but hopefully it helps.
So with that, I think we'll conclude, inshallah. Again, for those who caught the session late, and as well as the previous session, they are both on YouTube. Inshallah, we'll continue next week, same time, 7 p.m. sharp, same Zoom ID and password. I do have one favor. If people can recite a Surah Fatiha for my grandmother who just passed away, Sabiha Nur Hassan Jafri bint Sayyid Ali Akbar, as well as all the marhumin of all those who are able to participate here. If you don't mind, if we can conclude with that.
May Allah bless her, inshallah. My condolences to you and your family.
Well, thank you so much, Molana.
Inshallah. Thank you, everybody. May Allah bless you all. See you guys next Wednesday, inshallah.